Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tackling something pretty incredible. We're unpacking a single word that, honestly, contains an entire universe of meaning. We're going to explore the deep, multi-layered Arabic and Islamic concept of Rabb. Now, if you've ever read a translation of the Quran, you've likely seen this word simply translated as Lord or Master. But here's the thing. Those surface-level translations, they don't even begin to scratch the surface. We're going to move way beyond those basic definitions today and uncover a profound, active process that literally touches every single aspect of existence.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for the deep dive today. First, we'll look at the root meaning of Rabb. Second, from metaphor to polytheism, the father fallacy. Third, we'll discuss orphans and adoption in Islam. Fourth, the 6 core principles of nurturing. And finally, humans expect, Rabb nurtures with love.
All right, Section 1, the root meaning of Rabb. We're peeling back the linguistic layers of a truly profound word.
So, what does it actually mean? Well, the fundamental Arabic root of Rabb translates to Terbiye etmek. Now, hold on. This doesn't mean to rule over something with an iron fist. It actually means to nurture, to sustain, and to raise something step by step from its most primitive, raw state to its absolute glorious perfection. It's really important to understand that this isn't just a static title of royalty. It is a highly active, continuous, and deeply caring process of development. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this concept pops up across the Arabic language through its linguistic relatives. Take a look at these. Rabab refers to a rain-filled cloud. Why? Because the cloud nurtures the dry earth. Rabtul Adim refers to the act of tanning leather, taking this raw, stiff hide and conditioning it step by step into something supple and useful. And Rababar is the head of a household who maintains and manages the home. Rain clouds and tanning leather share the exact same linguistic root as the divine name, because they all involve taking something raw and nurturing it to its very best possible state. It's like a giant linguistic puzzle where all the pieces fit perfectly.
There's also this absolutely fascinating Arabic grammar rule at play here. You see, Rabb is originally a verbal noun, the act of nurturing itself. But in Arabic grammar, when a subject performs an action so flawlessly, so incredibly perfectly, the word for the action literally becomes the name for the doer. So the creator does this nurturing so perfectly that he doesn't just do the nurturing, he is the nurturer. The act and the title become the exact same thing.
Let's clarify this even further by comparing a few terms. Often, Rabb is equated with Sayyid, which means master, or Malik, meaning owner. But there is a crucial difference here. A Sayyid is a master over humans, right? You wouldn't call someone the master of a rock or a tree. But Rabb, the nurturer, applies to absolutely all of creation. It is the force that sustains the orbit of the planets and the metabolic functions of your very cells. It is this universal, life-sustaining care, not just some social hierarchy.
Moving right along to Section 2, from metaphor to polytheism, the father fallacy, the theological impact of misunderstood metaphors. Our source material maps out this wildly fascinating historical shift. Back in Aramaic, which was the language of Jesus, the term Rabb was used as a metaphor for an elder or a respected father figure. But the source argues that over generations, a massive linguistic drift took hold, and that cultural metaphor was mistakenly taken literally. Think about that. What started as a metaphor of deep respect, referring to the creator as a nurturing father, eventually morphed into literal biological interpretations. According to the Islamic perspective presented in our source, this specific shift is the very root that led to polytheism and the concept of the Trinity, completely altering the theological landscape forever. And honestly, this historical context explains a highly specific, super powerful linguistic choice in the Quran. The verse lem yelid translates to, he did not cause to beget. In Islamic theology, the divine has no gender. Why? Well, because gender implies a biological need for a counterpart, which completely contradicts the entire concept of an infinite, uncreated creator. The source makes the case that this specific linguistic choice was meant to permanently seal the door against literal interpretations of those ancient metaphors.
All right, Section 3, orphans and adoption in Islam. Let's ground these ancient linguistic roots in some real-life social impacts.
So is adoption forbidden in Islam? It's a really common misconception, and our source material tackles this question head-on with a powerful, linguistically driven argument that emphasizes pure compassion over rigid bureaucracy.
The whole argument centers on the words rabib and rabibe, which share a root word and mean stepchildren raised in the home. Now, in Islamic jurisprudence, if a person raises their spouse's child from a previous marriage in their household, that child legally becomes family, or mahrem.
The source passionately argues that if merely raising a child in a household creates this unbreakable familial bond, well, this provides a massive, legally sound foundation for adopting orphans. The ultimate goal of Islam here is mercy, justice, and protecting the vulnerable. Adopting an orphan and nurturing them under your roof is considered one of the greatest acts of Terbiye, and it should be celebrated and legally supported, not made overly complicated.
And this brilliantly illustrates our next point. Section 4, the 6 core principles of nurturing. Let's look at the core framework of the nurturer. True nurturing actually requires this really delicate balance of providing care while also maintaining authority. Here are the 6 pillars of that framework. First, the nurturer meets absolutely all the needs of the nurtured. Second, they supervise and guide them. Third, because they guide, they naturally must hold ultimate authority. Fourth, this immense level of care gives the nurturer inherent rights over the one being raised. Fifth, they logically expect obedience for the good of the nurtured. And sixth, in the grand theological sense, the ultimate nurturer gathers all of creation in the end. It's a complete, totally inescapable system of care.
Now, some might look at those principles, especially the authority and obedience parts, and just see restriction. But think about it. Would you ever, in a million years, accuse a mother of restricting her baby's freedom if she forcefully pulled that baby away from the edge of a cliff? No way. You'd call it an act of fierce, loving protection. So the crucial takeaway here is this. Divine boundaries, rules, and authority are not restrictions on human freedom at all. They are the ultimate acts of protection from an entity whose perspective and wisdom infinitely dwarf our own.
Which brings us to Section 5. Humans expect, Rab nurtures with love. The ultimate nurturer.
When you really break it down, there is a stark, absolute difference between human and divine nurturing. Human nurturing is almost always, at its core, transactional. Parents nurture to leave a legacy, or, frankly, to avoid societal shame. Teachers teach for a salary. Caregivers provide care for a wage. But the divine nurturer, Allah, has absolutely zero needs. He expects no physical return, no salary, no boost to his ego. Every single act of providing, sustaining, and guiding is done purely out of infinite, unconditional love.
And this boundless love creates what we can call a universal umbrella. The act of divine nurturing applies to everyone and everything indiscriminately. It literally doesn't matter if you are a devout believer or someone who entirely denies the Creator. Our source points out something wild. Even Pharaoh, a figure of ultimate historical arrogance, was nurtured. His heart beat, his lungs drew breath, his cells divided, all because he was sustained by his Rab. The nurturer doesn't just cut off oxygen when a human is ungrateful, right? The care remains absolute.
This whole concept builds directly into the very foundation of the Quran. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read in the name of your Rabb who created. These are the very first words revealed. Think about the profound weight of that choice for a second. The divine didn't use the name for the judge, or the king, or the all-powerful. No, the very first introduction to humanity was Rabb. Read in the name of your ultimate loving nurturer.
So I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought to chew on. If Rabb means the one who develops us step by step toward perfection, is the human intellect itself just another manifestation of this ultimate loving nurture? Your very ability to process these thoughts right now, to wonder about your place in the universe, is all of that a direct result of being perfectly, endlessly nurtured? It completely changes how you view every breath you take, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep journeying, keep questioning, and we'll catch you on the next one.